Okay, so this is my video, which is my introduction to my unit on macromolecules for my general biology class. So let's go ahead and start with, well, what are macromolecules? Macromolecules are very large organic molecules. So macro means large, and when we look at the four that we're going to talk about, we have carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Now, as you go through this unit, you'll learn about each of these in more depth. But generally speaking, all life on Earth is based on these four macromolecules. So just briefly, carbohydrates serve really two functions. We have energy as well as structure and support. Lipids have a couple functions. One is long-term energy storage, cell membranes, and used for cell communication. Proteins. Oh, wow. We have over 100,000 different proteins in the human body, and they have a wide range of functions from carrying out chemical reactions to cell communication, regulating our DNA. Oh my gosh, proteins are amazing and wide-ranging. And then we have nucleic acids, which are basically our DNA and our RNA, which is really used for genetic information, storing it as well as passing it on to future generations. But what we are going to focus on in this video or PowerPoint are the elements in each of these macromolecules, as well as how we can start to build these large macromolecules. So when we look at them, carbohydrates are composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Lipids are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Proteins are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And then nucleic acids are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. So when we look at these four macromolecules and we look at their structures, right, and what we see is carbohydrates, we see CHO. When we look at lipids, we see CHO. When we look at proteins, we see CHO and nitrogen. Now that R right there is just a placeholder. There's not actually an element with an R in proteins. And then we have nucleic acids. And nucleic acids, we see CHONP. So when we look at this, they all have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in common. And that's because carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are the foundation of our macromolecules. Now, you may be thinking, but why? Well, when we think about matter on planet Earth, matter is going to cycle. So later, when you get to an ecology unit, hopefully you get to talk about the carbon cycle or the water cycle or the nitrogen cycle, and you can see how matter on Earth is not created or destroyed, it's just transformed. So when we talk about matter in our atmosphere, we have our carbon dioxide. When you talk about water in our soil, plants or autotrophs, things that can do photosynthesis, are going to take carbon dioxide from their environment. They're going to take water from their environment. And through the beauty of photosynthesis, are going to rearrange that carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen into a simple sugar molecule. Now, I don't know if you noticed there in my video, they're also going to take nitrogen up from the soil as well as phosphorus. So when we look at all four of our major macromolecules, their foundation is CH and O coming from carbon dioxide and water during photosynthesis. Plants and autotrophs are able to take these elements and rearrange them into our four different macromolecules, and they can take the nitrogen and the phosphorus from the soil or from the environment and add it to these macromolecules to then build our proteins and our nucleic acids. Now, we do not carry out photosynthesis though, right? So where do we get our macromolecules? Well, that's going to be the food that we eat. When you look at nutrition labels, for example, if you're eating some kind of processed food, you'll see fat, carbohydrates, proteins. Those are our macromolecules. Hopefully you're eating whole foods as well. Those will have lipids, carbs, proteins, and nucleic acids. Okay, so keep in mind, you literally are what you eat. Now, but the question becomes, how do we build large organic molecules or macromolecules? Well, we start with a single building block called a monomer. So here the circle represents a generic monomer, and we can join monomers together into what we call a polymer. So here, if I have a handful of monomers, what we can do is we can join them together and build bonds, connecting them in a chain called a polymer. Now we're also able to also break them apart back into monomers. For example, when you eat protein, so let's say you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That peanut butter has lots of protein in it. Protein is a large macromolecule. It's going to look like a chain like this, a chain of amino acids. when we eat that protein, we will actually break it apart in our stomach into individual monomers that then we can use to build our own proteins. But anyway, so now let's go ahead and look at this. So a monomer, if we have some analogies here to help us really understand what it means, here we have like a paperclip. The polymer would be a chain of paper clips together, the same molecule repeating over and over and over again. If you had a train car, a whole lot of them hooked together would be the polymer. The monomer of a chain would be a single link, and then here you have a chain link. Or like Christmas lights. So one light bulb would be the monomer, but then the string of Christmas lights would be the polymer. Now I want to keep in mind, I kind of like both the paperclip, the train, and the lights as a good example. So you see like the paperclip, it's red as the monomer, and in the polymer, they're all paper clips, but they can have different variations. So that'll be important when we get to DNA and proteins because they have the same monomer, but the monomer can come in different forms. But anyway, so here again, you have monomers that can join together to form polymers, and then polymers can break apart to monomers. So, and then back and forth, back and forth. Now, if you are in a general biology class, and that's as far as your teacher is going, I would hit stop. Now, if you're in a little bit more of an advanced class, we can talk specifically about how you actually connect two monomers together and how you actually break apart a polymer. So that's this end part of our video here. So if we look at carbohydrates, for example, which will be a good next video to watch, would be the carbohydrates video. So here we have glucose. Glucose is the monomer of carbohydrates. It has C, H, and O. And so if we were going to build a polymer of carbohydrates, I could take two glucose monomers, and to join them together, I'm going to remove a hydrogen from one and an OH from the other. Now, H2O forms water. So basically, I dehydrated this molecule, and I'm bringing the two monomers together and will form a covalent bond between them. So by removing a water, you form a bond, a covalent bond between the two monomers. Now, here we did build something, right? So that would be synthesizing. And then we did it by removing a water. So the actual name for this process is dehydration synthesis. We built by dehydrating or removing a water. Now, if you were building a polymer of carbohydrates, you would continue this process as you keep on adding glucose to this growing chain. Now, if we were going to break a bond, it's going to be the opposite. Instead of removing a water, we're going to add a water, and that will break the covalent bond, now releasing two individual monomers. So a name for this process, we added a water, so that's going to have hydro in it. And then in biology, the word lysis means to split. So here we have hydrolysis or hydrolysis. All right, that is my video on the introduction to macromolecules with monomers and polymers. I would suggest my next video is on carbohydrates, so you'll look more at these monosaccharides, and then I would then go into lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. All right, great job.